So let's start the party. Let's jump into a little bit of history of Atlassian. So we're gonna pull up a couple of articles to kind of talk about the history and see like how Atlassian has changed. And feel free in the comment section here to kind of describe your first memory or just kind of like the things that you remember of the good, the bad, and the ugly that Atlassian has gone through in these transitions. Because a lot has changed since day one, right? A lot, the how the product is used, how it's marketed, just
I mean,
how
just
you.
how it feels. I mean, I've had to load some very old instances of Atlassian for a few tricks in migration, and it feels almost alien now compared to, especially Atlassian Cloud. Some of the old versions of Confluence, the old versions of Jira just feel foreign in a way that I'm like, I know this was the version I started with. Why does it feel so off all of a sudden?
Yeah. I still remember the first time that I went to the cloud. I was like, this feels weird. And then because I came from the data center world, right? And then the cloud like got like the data center look. And now when I go back to data center, I'm like, what is this antique? Because now the
Hmm.
cloud is like, I think the cloud's always constantly being updated. And so now just even data center, just going back to it. Like I always like looking at screenshots of documentation from vendors and stuff because I'm like, you haven't updated to the cloud. Because you can really, really obviously tell the difference between the UIs. We're just here in a post that Atlassian posted a few years ago, or sorry, a year ago, on June 2nd of 2022. And they kind of went through their 20th anniversary. But as Bob said here, Atlassian is now old enough to drink. So they've been around for 21 years, I guess, at this point. And but we're gonna kind of walk a little bit through the history and again just highlight some of the memorable moments and maybe call out where we jumped in, right? Where in that timeline we started using it, and again, some of our favorite memories from the years of Atlassian. Now, I thought this was super interesting. I don't know if y'all can see this, but this right here reminds me of like the Facebook when it was like the Facebook and Mark
Hmm.
Zuckerberg made that original logon. Like I'm getting like straight up like original OG Facebook vibes, but it makes sense. Facebook's 2004, this is 2002. I don't know that I ever saw this login or this icon at all. But one of the main things we're going to be talking about today is Charlie, right? And I think this is probably the first time that we see Charlie.
Yeah. This is probably one of the first iterations. For you, those of you who may not be aware, may not even know who we're talking about, Charlie was Atlassian's original logo icon. It was featured in some form or another on all their products. In fact, the when they gave their AI demo at Team 23, they called their assistant Charlie in honor of the original icon. And it's supposed to be inspired by Atlas holding up the world. That's kind of where it came from, and it just kind of evolved from there.
Yep. And so, in case you didn't know, Jira was really a bug tracking tool, right? You have a couple of developers who are probably running into some sort of bug, some sort of problems. And so they just needed a bug tracker. They needed something that wasn't Bugzilla. Now, I am old enough to also remember Bugzilla. I never had good experiences with it. um, but yeah, it's essentially it was like there was really only one tool back in the day that I can remember, and so these founders created a very engineering centric tool that really helped engineers, right? And it's really interesting to contrast Jira then with Jira today, because I don't know that Jira even cares about engineering at this point, right? Like I feel a lot of the direction today is just like everybody, right? A team, anybody and everybody, right? And it's just so interesting to see how like that original roots of very much a technical tool for technical folks, but now it's just that it has evolved over 21 years to become like the tool for everybody.
I mean, we say that, but we still see vestiges of this time. The default fields, such as fixed version, effects version, components, all these work towards this original purpose as a bug tracking tool. What version was a bug first seen in? What versions does it affect? What versions is it fixed in? All this was meant to originally harken back to this purpose.
Yep. And let's not forget that it was Australian too, right? And so I guess 2003 is really when it starts making its way over to the US.
Hmm.
And we're starting to see Atlassian really, really start taking off here in 2003 as a very, very first contender. Looks like there's some story here with American Airlines. They saw Jira on our website and bought it just like that. Now, in the chat, anybody remember how much Jira used to cost? I always am blown away by how much the price was. So in the chat, how much was Jira? Let me rephrase. How much was Jira when you first started using Atlassian or Jira? Because I'm really, really curious to see where different phases in the pricing timeline folks came in through as well. Then we fast forward to 2004. The sooner you acknowledge the wrong turn, the sooner you'll get back on track. Momentum starting to build, and seems like a good time to have the U.S. presence, since that's where most of the customers were. So Atlassian set up a tiny office in New York. I did not know that. I always thought they were just based out of SF. I thought they would have gone straight to San Francisco. But our
No.
leadership team realized quickly that we overextended, closing that office. But it was a good practice, making tough calls, and which would we may need to follow here. So that's always I think I like that, right? It's always tough. I think a lot of companies just try to stick to a decision and they just live with it because they made the decision. But it shows a lot of maturity here to like acknowledge a mistake and pivot. Coming in 2005, innovation needs dedicated time and space, and it's not going to happen on your coffee break. Ship it. Any thoughts on
Yeah.
what's your favorite memory of Ship It?
Honestly, I've just like I've always checked out the aftermath. I've never watched it live. But that being said, some of our favorite features and products come out of Ship It. The most famous example of which is, of course, JSM itself.
Now, I really like Ship It, right? So in case you're watching this and you're like, what the heck are they talking about Ship It? Ship It is a hackathon, and it's a period of time and in Atlassian where the developers and really the company gets time to basically work on whatever they want for X amount of time. But anyways, hackathons are really, really cool. I think there's a really good idea, and it's one of the things that I think Atlassian still does even to this day, right? Like
They
just
do.
it's a great way to get your team to just come together for a few days. I think it's usually like a 24-hour thing, right? And just have food, drinks, have a good time, code. Anybody and everybody can contribute to these ideas, and it's usually how you get cool things to happen.
Very much so.
So we fast forward a little bit. I want to kind of go here to these meaningful
Um,
values. Go ahead.
this, by the way, was and probably again will be a quiz whiz question.
Yeah.
So they love to pull questions from these values.
So the values I think are really interesting because I again grew up in this culture of defense, right? This culture of very seriousness, a culture of pecking orders, and you don't challenge up, and it's a very much top down type of influence, and you don't you don't make jokes, right? Like you don't everybody's like always on the edge, very very tense situations. And when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is a company that would be really cool to work at. Because like, what other companies literally put this kind of language publicly out there? And it just goes to show how what an awesome and just like down to earth company they are.
Bob is currently studying for quiz whiz at the same time.
Bob, we're like competitors. I should not be giving you these answers.
No,
All
Bob,
right,
keep at it. Keep at it.
keep at
Definitely
it.
just
Yeah.
keep at it.
So this is, I think, now entered Rodney, right? So 2008, the user community. I think this is kind of what, obviously, not you not coming in 2008, but you're a really big popular member of the community here, along with we got Mr. Bob and we got Andy, right? These heavy hitters in these Atlassian communities, and I think it's interesting that like I am now, literally now, just as of Team 23, finding out about this community leaders program, and this thing has been around since 2008.
hmm
So it's crazy.
I mean, I didn't even find out about it till my first summit. It's like the best kept secret in the Atlassian world is there are these groups where you could just join and learn things and talk to people. By the way, I am presenting for the Boise, Idaho Atlassian Community Events Group next week. So definitely check the bio for details on that.
I love this line here. So Atlassian started supporting them with pizza, beer, and T-shirts, and then basically started out of the way. I think that still echoes today, right? Like Atlassian
Yeah,
is very
yeah.
supportive. They um, obviously you guys are probably way more involved than me, right? But you're always getting like all kinds of good swag, and you get a lot of resources, but then you get freedom to kind of evangelize the products, right, to the best of what you like and don't like.
Yeah.
Coming still in, man. Like I am still not in here. Anybody like in the chat? Did I hit a year where you came into Atlassian yet, or are we still? I'm in the 2010s era. So say
I
hi to
said we
Mel.
haven't even reached where I've joined in yet, so we still got a
Getting
bit to go.
funded isn't worth selling out. Okay. Ripping off the band-aid reduces customers' pain. Rapid growth. 2013, secondments to the other teams build trust, empathy, cohesion. Investing in company culture pays real dividends. Atlassian regular appears on greatest places to work for. I'm still not in here, right? In 2014, I was still using Team Foundation Server.
This is January 2014, January 13th. I still remember the day I started.
Ooh.
Is when I first became an Atlassian admin. It was one of several tools I was taking over, but yeah, that's the point where life completely changed.
Yeah, that's so I still couldn't like I thought that you and I were in here around the same time, but I'm still not in here. I came into Atlassian right around here, what would have been Halloween of 2016. Now, since nobody in the chat here is telling me, right? $10, $10 for your perpetual license to Jira Server. That's what it used to cost. Now you almost are paying that for just one user for 1 month.
Yeah. I mean, up until 2021, you could get that same deal still. $10 for 10 users on the basic level Jira server.
At what year did Atlassian start making them the switch to the cloud? Because I feel like that was like the most pivotal moment in Atlassian's history, right? It was the moment where they're like, we need to start making money. Because that's how it feels like to me.
Now, what year did they start their
2012.
cloud product, or what year did they really start pushing it? Because those are two different dates.
Well, let's go. Let's do both dates. What dates do you remember?
I want to say I've heard and seen references to what would become the Atlassian cloud product as early as 2015. So that was way back there, but they didn't really start pushing it hard until they went public, which I believe was 2018, 2019.
When did they go public? In the chat, who knows?
I was wrong.
What year was
I
it?
was entirely wrong. Atlassian went public on December of 2015.
Oh man, 2021 is when I first came into. Well, actually, 2020 is when I first came into the cloud. 2020 is
Hmm.
when I left that defense world and I came into a little startup. And this is when I was like, "Whoa, this Jira looks weird. It's all blue and it's all to the side." Y'all remember when the UI was on like all the navigation was on the left? What
Yes,
a
yes.
weird time it was.
I know because I was working at a large company at the time, and it was often discussed with Atlassian and our technical account managers, which are now known as vice services, because we have to constantly rebrand everything. Jira Data Center was the big thing from like 2015 through to about 2018 ish. 2018, 19, they really started pushing the cloud hard, and then as we know, 2021 is when they announced, oh, by the way, server, sorry.
Server, yeah, sorry. I like how that can literally just be the sentence today. Server, sorry. Yeah, I think it's so I think let's just kind of wrap this conversation up here, right? And talk about a little bit about the future of Atlassian, because at Team 23 is kind of where I've seen it the most, right? Like we have the introduction of Jira product discovery, right? They have an introduction of a heavy emphasis on team managed projects, right? And the way I see Atlassian doing this is that they have a huge emphasis and huge need, I guess urge really is what how I'll define it, to really appease to literally non-technical folks, right? Try to get everybody and anybody into the space. And I think it's public. I don't know that I don't want to misspeak, but I think I have seen public information about Atlassian Together. Ronnie, is that something I can't talk about? Ronnie,
No,
Atlassian Together? It's
it's
public, right? Anybody in the chat? Everybody
yeah,
knows
it's
about Atlassian
public.
Together? Okay, so Atlassian Together is Atlassian's their packaging. I think it's Trello, Jira Work Management, um, Atlassian
It's
Access.
I think work management is in there.
Yeah, so work management and I think it was Trello. So they're packaging a couple of different products, right? that are really geared towards, again, just folks that need kind of like a Trello type of thing, right? And don't necessarily buy into the whole agile Kool-Aid drink over there. And so I think it's just a really Confluence. Yeah, Confluence is definitely part of that Atlassian package, right? And so it's just like a really interesting direction that I think Atlassian is taking. I don't know how I feel about it though, because the reason why I love Atlassian so much is because of its roots in Agile, right? It's in its ability to do Scrum really, really well. And I'm kind of torn. I kind of feel like they're really leaving us behind. But I don't know if the industry is changing. Like, are companies wanting to be more
I
agile, less
think
agile? Like, does it matter anymore?
I take the opposite approach. Since I've been a Jira admin, I've always been approached by different organizations wanting to get on the Jira bandwagon, marketing, legal, ops, all these different organizations who wanted to be on this tool. And I definitely see the trend of Jira, but for X continuing on into the future. And that's kind of where we're at is Jira, but for product managers, Jira, but for legal, Jira, but for marketing, all these different groups. That's kind of trend I see continuing because that's always been the place, but it's always been on the Jira admin to do the groundwork to change a default software product or software project to something suitable for marketing, for legal, for whoever.
That's a little bit of the history of Atlassian. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed it.